Imagine you are walking through a dense forest. You are alone, surrounded by the sounds of nature. You feel safe, dominant, the master of your environment. But then you stop. The hair on the back of your neck stands up. You have that primal, instinctive feeling that something is looking at you. You scan the trees, but you see nothing. You look at the ground, nothing. But the feeling persists. You are being watched. Now, imagine that the forest is the galaxy, and the eyes watching you are not those of a tiger, but of a machine built by a civilization 1,000,000 years more advanced than our own. For decades, we have scanned the skies with radio telescopes, desperate to find a signal, a beep, a sign of life. We asked, where are they? We never stopped to ask the more terrifying question, how long have they been watching us? The saga of the interstellar object 3I/Atlas has just taken a turn that transforms it from a scientific curiosity into an existential crisis. We are no longer dealing with a visitor, we are dealing with a sentinel. The revelation came not from a photograph, but from a shadow. As 3I/Atlas moved through the inner solar system, astronomers expected it to tumble. All natural objects tumble. Asteroids, comets, debris, they spin chaotically because of billions of years of collisions. But 3I/Atlas does not tumble. Recent high-fidelity telemetry from the Deep Space Network has confirmed that the object is tidally locked to Earth. This is a phenomenon we usually see with moons locked to their parent planets. The moon always shows the same face to the Earth because of gravity, but 3I/Atlas is not orbiting Earth. It is flying past us at thousands of miles per hour. For an unattached hyperbolic object to maintain a perfect locked orientation toward a specific planet requires active control systems. It requires gyroscopes. It requires thrusters. It means that one side of the object, the side covered in what appears to be sensor arrays, has been pointed directly at our planet for the last 3 weeks without deviating by a fraction of a degree. It is staring at us. This behavior changes the definition of the encounter. If you walk past a house and you turn your head to keep looking at it as you walk, you are interested. If you pull out a camera and film it, you are gathering intelligence. 3I/Atlas is filming us, but it is not using light. It is likely using a spectrum of surveillance technology that we can barely comprehend. We have detected anomalies in the neutrino flux passing through the Earth. Neutrinos are ghost particles. They pass through the planet as if it were made of mist. Usually they come from the sun, but for the last few days there has been a statistically significant spike in high-energy neutrinos originating from the direction of 3I/Atlas. This suggests the object is performing a deep field scan. It is not looking at our skin, it is looking at our bones. It is scanning the density of our crust, the composition of our mantle, and perhaps the electronic signature of our global civilization. In the physics of civilizations, we often discuss the zoo hypothesis. This is the idea that extraterrestrial civilizations know we are here, but they treat us like animals in a nature preserve. They obey a prime directive of non-interference. They watch, they record, but they do not touch. However, 3I/Atlas challenges the passive nature of this hypothesis. A zoo visitor stands behind glass. This object has entered the cage. By locking its sensors onto Earth, it has signaled intent, and that intent is focused on our techno-signature. We have been leaking radio waves, television signals, and radar pulses into space for 100 years. We have created a bubble of noise around our planet. To a Type 2 civilization capable of harnessing the power of an entire star, this noise is primitive, but it is distinct. It marks us as a species that has just discovered matches and is currently playing with fire in a room full of gasoline. The most chilling aspect of this surveillance is the silence. If 3I/Atlas is a probe, it is likely an artificial general intelligence, AGI. It is a robot. It has no biological need for sleep, no fear, and no impatience. It processes data at the speed of light. While we panic, while our governments argue over whether to release the data, the machine is simply calculating. It is building a model of humanity. It is analyzing our wars, our weather patterns, our internet traffic. It knows us better than we know ourselves because it sees the whole picture at once. We are the ants scurrying on the ground. It is the human with the magnifying glass. And the question is, does it plan to study the ants or does it plan to burn them? Let's consider the technology required to watch a planet from this distance with this fidelity. We are struggling to image exoplanets as mere pixels of light. We can barely tell if they have atmospheres. 3 I/Atlas, based on the gravitational perturbations we are measuring, is likely using quantum sensing. This is a technology that utilizes the spooky action at a distance, quantum entanglement, to gain information instantly without the lag of light speed. If they have distributed sensors, smart dust, throughout the solar system, 3 I/Atlas acts as the central processing hub. It captures the state of every particle, every wave. This means there are no secrets. The silos where we keep our nuclear missiles, it sees them. The encrypted servers of our banking systems, it reads them. The layout of our power grids, it has mapped them. In the face of a Type 2 technology, privacy is an illusion. We are living in a glass house and the lights have just been turned on. The psychological impact of this realization cannot be overstated. Humanity has always operated under the assumption of anonymity. We thought our sins were hidden in the dark. We thought our conflicts were local. But if 3 I/Atlas is a recorder, then everything we do is being archived in a galactic library. We are being judged. This is the Sentinel concept from Arthur C. Clarke, a device left to monitor a primitive species until they cross a certain threshold. Have we crossed it? Is the arrival of 3 I/Atlas a trigger? Perhaps our development of AI or our climate instability has set off an alarm in the galactic network. Species 849 is becoming unstable. Initiate close-range observation. The watching isn't just passive observation, it's active interrogation. Yesterday, Space Force tracking stations reported a series of LiDAR bursts, laser radar, emanating from the object. These were not communication signals, they were mapping pulses. They hit the major population centers, Tokyo, New York, Mumbai, millisecond flashes of invisible light. It is building a 3D topographical map of our civilization's density. It is counting us. Why do you count a population? You count them to calculate resources. You count them to estimate threat levels. Or in the darkest interpretation, you count them to determine the efficiency of a removal protocol. We must also consider the dark forest theory again. If the universe is a dark forest full of hunters, you stay quiet. We have been shouting. 3. I/Atlas might be the scout that heard the shout. It has come to verify the source. If it determines that we are a future threat, a civilization that is growing too fast and too aggressively, it might place a marker on us, a beacon that says, here they are. And what follows the scout is not usually a diplomat, it is the hunter. But there is another possibility, one that appeals to the optimist in me. Perhaps it is watching us like a parent watches a toddler learning to walk. Perhaps the gaze is benevolent. Maybe it is waiting for us to signal back, not with fear, but with mathematics. Maybe it is checking to see if we are smart enough to realize we are being watched. It is a test of our awareness. If we ignore it, we fail. If we shoot at it, we fail. But if we look back, if we acknowledge the observer, we might pass the test. However, the latest data points suggest something far more complex than simple observation. The object isn't just looking at the Earth, it is looking at the Moon. Specifically, it has focused its sensors on the far side of the Moon, the side that never faces Earth. This is where we have very little infrastructure. Why look there? Unless it is looking for something that was left there a long time ago. Unless it is checking a dead drop. This implies that 3 I/Atlas is not the first visitor. It implies that surveillance has been ongoing for millions of years, and 3 I/Atlas is simply here to pick up the tapes. We are standing naked in the cosmic wind. The illusion of solitude is shattered. We are being observed, categorized, and analyzed by a cold silicon intelligence that operates on a timescale we cannot comprehend. The eye of the universe has blinked open and it is staring right at us. The question is no longer, is there life out there? The question is, what does that life think of us? and as the object continues its silent, locked stare, we are beginning to realize that the verdict might already be decided. The attention 3 I/Atlas paid to the dark side of the moon is the detail that transforms this event from a flyby into an audit. If you were a surveillance drone sent to monitor a primitive civilization for 50,000 years, where would you hide your data cache? You wouldn't put it on Earth. Earth is geologically active. Plate tectonics would crush your hard drive. You would put it on the moon. It is geologically dead, silent, and until 1969, completely inaccessible to the locals. The fact that 3 I/Atlas paused to synchronize with a specific crater on the lunar far side suggests that it was uploading. It was collecting the logs from a passive sensor that has been watching us since we were banging rocks together in the Serengeti. This implies that our history, our wars, our very evolution has not gone unnoticed. It has been recorded. We are the subjects of the longest documentary in the galaxy, and the director has finally arrived to pick up the film reels. But the watching didn't stop at the moon. As the object swung back around towards Earth for its departure trajectory, the nature of its surveillance changed again. It shifted from passive observation to active penetration. Our global telecommunications networks began to experience a phenomenon that engineers are calling the echo. For a period of 6 hours, every encrypted data packet sent across the Atlantic fiber optic cables was duplicated. Financial transactions, military comms, private emails, everything was mirrored. We didn't lose the data, it was simply copied. The latency was zero. This is impossible with current technology. To intercept a fiber optic signal without cutting the line requires quantum tapping. It requires interacting with the photons in the cable without collapsing their wave function. This confirms that 3 I/Atlas possesses quantum computing capabilities that exceed the combined processing power of every computer on Earth. It didn't just hack the Pentagon, it downloaded the collective consciousness of humanity. It absorbed the internet. Think about what that means. In a matter of hours, this machine learned everything about us. It learned about our art, our science, our love, and our hate. It saw the best of us, and it saw the worst of us. It saw our nuclear stockpiles and our environmental destruction. It now possesses a complete psychological profile of the human species. To a Type 2 civilization, we are no longer a mystery. We are an open book. And the frightening thing about an open book is that it can be closed. This brings us to the most dangerous moment of the encounter, the verdict. In game theory, once you have complete information about a player, you make a move. You decide if they are a cooperator or a defector. If 3 I/Atlas determines that we are a defector civilization, a species that destroys its environment and threatens its neighbors, it might initiate a containment protocol. We have detected a change in the object's energy output. The blue glow is fading, replaced by a deep pulsating violet in the ultraviolet spectrum. This is high energy ionization. It is charging up. But for what? A transmission, a jump, or a sterilization? The atmosphere in the scientific community is one of held breath. We are waiting for the other shoe to drop, and yesterday it dropped. The object didn't fire a weapon. It didn't destroy a city. It did something far more humiliating. It ignored us. After completing its data absorption, 3 I/Atlas engaged its drive system. It didn't bother to communicate. It didn't send a hello or a goodbye. It simply applied a gravitational vector that accelerated it to 5% of the speed of light in a matter of minutes. It turned its back on us. This silence is the most devastating message of all. If we were a threat, they would have destroyed us. If we were equals, they would have talked to us. The fact that they simply watched, took what they wanted, and left tells us our status in the galaxy. We are irrelevant. We are bacteria on a microscope slide. Interesting to look at, but you don't negotiate with them. However, there is a detail in the departure vector that has NASA scrambling. 3 I/Atlas didn't head back out into the random void. It headed toward a specific coordinate. It is aiming for the star system 55 Cancri. This is a system known to have multiple planets, including a super-Earth. It is 41 light years away. This suggests a network. It is heading to the next node. But as it left a wake. The gravitational distortion caused by its acceleration drive has created a ripple in the Oort cloud. It has disturbed the comets on the edge of our system. It has kicked the hornet's nest. We may see an increase in cometary impacts in the next century because of this careless departure. They walked through our garden and knocked over the flower pots. It shows a total lack of concern for our well-being. It reinforces the idea that to a Type 2 civilization, we are not special. We are just in the way. But I want to leave you with a thought that is both terrifying and inspiring. The surveillance is over, but the data is now out there. A digital copy of humanity, our music, our history, our DNA codes, is currently traveling at relativistic speeds across the stars. Even if we destroy ourselves tomorrow, even if we burn the Earth to a cinder, we have been backed up. The Watcher has preserved us. We have achieved a strange kind of immortality. We are now part of the galactic record. The arrival of 3I/Atlas was a mirror held up to our face. We looked into the abyss, and for the first time, the abyss looked back with a camera lens. It saw us naked, fragile, and divided. We can no longer pretend that we are the masters of the universe. We are children playing in a sandbox, and we just saw an adult walk by. The adult didn't offer us a candy bar, but he didn't kick over the castle either. He just watched. And now that we know he is watching, we have to ask ourselves, how do we want to behave? We need to grow up. We need to transition from a Type 0 civilization fighting over oil and land to a Type 1 civilization that controls the energy of its planet and speaks with a unified voice. Because 3I/Atlas was just a scout. It was a drone. Eventually, the civilization that built it might come to see the data for themselves. And when they arrive, we need to be ready. We need to be worth talking to. The object is gone, fading into the darkness of deep space. The blue light has vanished, but the feeling remains. The forest is no longer empty. We know the tiger is there. We know it has eyes, and we know that it knows where we sleep. The age of innocence is over. The age of the Watcher has begun. Look up at the moon tonight and wonder, what did they leave behind? And more importantly, when will they come back to check the recording?